What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Patrick here. Moving on to the next question. So a company had assets of $1,100,000 and liabilities of $620,000 at the beginning of the year. During the year, assets increased by $240,000 and liabilities decrease by $240,000. What is the equity at the end of the year? So notice this is a financial statement algebra question. So what I'm going to do, as I did with the previous questions, is write out that flow chart. So we got assets equals liabilities plus equity. This is split up into capital and retained earnings. And we got changes in assets is changes in liabilities plus changes in equity. And the changes in equity is change in capital plus change in retained earnings. And then after the changes throughout the year, we end up with our final balance sheet, which is assets equals liabilities plus equity. And then that equity amount is the retained earnings and the capital. And then this change in retained earnings over here, as a side note, it's the net income minus the dividends, and then the net income is split up into revenue minus expenses. Right, so now let's fill in. So a company had assets of 1.1 million and liabilities of 620,000 at the beginning of the year, which is over here. So the assets were 1,100,000. The liabilities were 620,000. And then we're told during the year assets increased by 240,000. That's the change in assets, so that's positive 240,000. And then the liabilities decrease by 240,000. So that's a negative right there, change in liabilities. And they're asking what is the equity at the end of the year. They're asking for this amount over here. So notice that we're not really given too much information in this question, or rather no information about the owner's capital and the retained earnings. And then notice we're not given any information about the net income, the dividends, the revenue, the expenses. So notice that this stuff is actually irrelevant in this question. We're just dealing with the general accounts. And so a lot of times, even though I'm going to draw out this flow chart for each of these questions, a lot of times, lots of this stuff isn't used. You got to read the question carefully. So we're dealing with the general accounts of assets, liabilities, and equity. So this question isn't too bad. And notice to get to this equity amount here, we can do it in multiple ways. So the first way we could do it is we can find out what's the ending assets, because we have the beginning and then the change. So this plus this would give us 1,340,000. That would be the ending assets. We can get the ending liabilities. We would take this and then subtract that, and that would give us 380,000 for the ending liabilities, right? The beginning liabilities of 620,000 minus 240 gives us 380, and then we could subtract these, right? Because this has to hold. So assets minus the liabilities, if we bring this over, 1,340,000 minus 380,000 would give us 960,000 for that ending equity. So that's actually the final answer to this question. What's another way we could have done this? Well, we could have found out what the beginning equity is from this over here. So we could have took the 1.1 million minus the 620,000, and that would give us what? This would be 480. That would be the beginning equity, 480,000. And then notice that we have the change in assets and the change in liabilities, so we can find out what the change in the equity is, because this is an equation here that has to hold. So notice that we got 240,000 equals negative 240,000. And then we want that change in equity, so that's going to be the variable we're solving for. So I'll put an X there, bring this over. This becomes a positive. So notice that the equity goes up by 480,000. And actually the fact that this and this are the same is just a coincidence, right? They're not always going to be the same in every question. So we have the beginning equity of 480,000 plus the change in equity. It's a positive value, 480,000. When we add those up, notice that we get that 960 as well, right? So multiple ways you can get that ending equity amount, whichever way you do it, 960,000 is the final answer.